Sombra is the villain. Do I even need to explain myself any more than that? If you came to me expecting to defend Sombra in this video, then you're wrong, because Sombra is undefendable. Sombra began as a villain in the series and died a villain in the series. He was such a big villain, in fact, that he was one of the only characters in all of My Little Pony to actually die. In Season 9, Episode 2, he literally gets obliterated by magic. Not defeated, not reformed, killed! He's literally torn to shreds, and we can see that happen on screen. He is not coming back. But I'm gonna get ahead of myself, because Sombra is the bad guy. Except for that one time when he wasn't. That's right, we're getting into the comics now. Much like how Caden seems like a very boring character from the series perspective, same way with Sombra. He's a very boring villain. On the surface, he seems quite shallow. In the actual series, the most backstory they give to him is saying that he was a unicorn with a black heart who took over the Empire. That's it. He's an evil dude, he's a villain to be defeated, and that's all we ever knew about him from the series perspective. But in the comics, oh boy, this guy goes crazy hard. In the comics, they actually give him a pretty complex and well thought out backstory. One that makes sense within the time frame of FIM. So, who is Sombra? Before we get into the comics, let's go to the series first and figure out what he was in the series, right? So, Sombra is, like I said, that was some words. Sombra's a unicorn whose heart was as black as gold. Using dark magic, he somehow took over the entire empire, presumably defeated the original rulers of the empire, enslaved all ponies for a couple years for some reason, before he was defeated by none other than Celestia and Luna themselves, which is a big thing because Celestia and Luna are usually pretty useless in the series. This is one of the very first times Satellite Sisters ever did anything. But before Sombra was defeated by the Satellite Sisters, he did put a curse on the empire, which basically dragged him down with him. The Empire, along with him, vanished for 1,000 years before it came back in the Season 3 premiere, where, with the power of friendship, magic, shining armor, and cadence, and the main 6, he gets defeated once again. He goes missing for a very long time, up until Season 9, the very last season of FIM, where Grogar, aka Discord Disguise, pulls him out of Purgatory and reassembles his molecules and makes Sombra again. He basically revived him for an alliance. To make a season-long story short, Sombra goes AWOL from the group and attempts to single-handedly take over Equestria. And to be fair to Sombra, it almost works. But like I said, this is one of the very few times that somebody's actually, like, murdered in the series. Off of the top of my head, I think the only, like, deaths FIM's ever had was obviously King Sombra himself, and I think the Storm King, where he gets shattered into 1,000 pieces from falling off a balcony while being turned to stone. He's not coming back from that. And it's not like Amore, where her pieces were shattered, but she could still be reassembled. Like, Storm King's freaking dead, guys. Ain't no rest for the wicked. And as of the series, that's the end of it. All we know about him is that he was once a mortal unicorn who was corrupted by dark magic and turned to evil and tried to destroy everything everybody ever knew. So normal unicorn, dark magic, took over the empire, got banished once, got banished twice, died. But like I said, Sombra is actually a very interesting character because in the comics, which we're entering into now, things do get very, very interesting. Sombra is a species of pony called an umbrum. What does that mean? Umbrum is a type of pony that's referred to sometimes as a shadow pony, which is different than the pony of shadows, Stygian. So, Stygian, the pony of shadows, is not the same as a shadow pony. Those are two separate things, although they're kind of linked together, maybe. I don't know. Umbrum is a species of pony who has been trapped under the Crystal Empire for a number of years. And they require some pony on the inside to be able to free them from their eternal torment, their glacial imprisonment. So they somehow built the body of a cult and put an Umbrum inside of that cult and made Sombra, an Umbrum with a physical form. It's also very interesting to note that I believe that this part of the comic somewhat implies that the Umbrum they chose to give a body was actually a filly, but the body was that of a cult. This might just be literally a grammatical error, but it's fun to note. Get your trans headcanons out, boys. But Sombra was a newborn Umbrum, so he had no memories of being an Umbrum. So instead, he was found outside of the Crystal Empire in the snow, was rescued by guards, and was given to an orphanage. There, you know, he butted shoulders with some bullies, but also met a really nice friend known as Radiant Hope, who unfortunately has never been shown in the series. One day, these two best buds decided to visit the Crystal Heart. Apparently, the Crystal Heart can sometimes show you visions of the future, although it's really not of the future, it's more like reflections of your heart. And although while Radiant saw herself as a princess, Sombra saw himself as a monster. He saw himself as King Sombra. And Sombra was terrified of the monster he saw in the reflection. And it looks like it almost borderline gave him nightmares, which is quite sad because we all know the way he turned out, right? Then he also sees Princess Amore and for whatever reason decides to lie to her and say that he didn't see anything. But the Crystal Heart itself actually has a very interesting property. Around the Crystal Fair, the Crystal Heart will start defending itself harder and harder. It will protect the Empire from dark and dangerous forces. But it is also a shame that Sombra himself, although he's not evil, was made of dark forces. What does this mean? It means that the Crystal Heart starts attacking Sombra. Whenever the Crystal Fair begins, once every year, Sombra will literally get physically sick. His first experience with the Crystal Fair literally leaves him paralyzed from the waist down. And he gets body aches and, I don't know, general sickness things. The Crystal Heart is literally attacking an innocent cult because he was formed from dark magic. But like I said, although he's not evil himself, he's still experiencing pain from the heart. It eventually got to the point where the Crystal Heart was attacking him so hard and so ferociously that his physical body began actually breaking apart. Like, his mortal shell could not keep up with the damages that was happening to him. And he almost very nearly broke apart. It's entirely thanks to Radiant Hope, who healed him, that he didn't, I don't know, die. Well, he's an Umbrum, so I don't think he would have died per se, but he was not going in a nice place. Because of this event, Radiant Hope got her cutie mark, and in a display very similar to Starlight Glimmers, Sombra runs away. Because in his mind, Radiant Hope was on the path to becoming a princess, aka what she saw in the Crystal Heart, which meant that what he saw in the Crystal Heart would probably come true. He would become King Sombra. So Sombra ran out of the Empire into the snow and found a crystal that was kind of like the gateway to the Umbrum world. And there he communicated with his mother, okay? And his mother unlocked a part of himself and allowed him to become King Sombra. And she told him to go destroy the Crystal Heart, the thing that was basically keeping the Umbrums trapped underneath the ice. And so he does what everybody expected him to do, which was to take the Crystal Heart. And it turns out Princess Amore this entire time knew he was an Umbrum. This entire time, Princess Amore knew he was in physical pain and just didn't tell him. She knew how to get rid of the physical pain, which was basically like, what, moving him away from the Crystal Heart. And she just never told him why. The reason why? I don't know. I think Amore was waiting till this opportune moment to try to convince Sombra that being evil wasn't the right way and not take the Crystal Heart, right? But the plan horrifically backfired when Sombra, in a fit of rage after being told, you know, his pain was preventable, turned her into crystal shards and scattered her body parts across Equestria. Damn! To me, it almost seems like Princess Amore was attempting to pull a Celestia. Kind of like withholding information from Twilight Sparkle to make her do something important, that kind of thing. But maybe Amore didn't realize how far Sombra went into the deep end and grossly misunderestimated what he was capable of. So, to recap, Amore knew he was in pain for a very long time and never helped him. And then, I don't know, Pikachu's surprise face when he was angry at her. So now we all know the story, right? Sombra takes over the Empire after killing Amore. Celestia and Luna banish him, and then all that jazz happens, blah, blah, blah. Then he comes back again and then dies to Twilight Sparkle. But actually, before Sombra, you know, died in the show, Sombra actually made yet another comic appearance. So everything I just told you so far can be like supplementary to the main show. It can be canon, and it can be considered canon because nothing in the show really disproved Sombra's backstory. But the next part has been directly disproven by the show. It has been contradicted because Sombra, as we know in the show, died. But what if I told you that at some point in the comics, Sombra was actually redeemed? Radiant Hope, who saw what Sombra did and became, went and tattletaled to Celestia and Luna, and that's where all that banishing stuff happens, right? Turns out, though, that Radiant Hope actually felt kind of bad for tattletaling Sombra. And despite being accepted by Susty and Luna, Radiant still went back to the Empire and attempted to figure out what she could do to make it up for Sombra. Well, she found that crystal Sombra found and entered the Umbrum world for the next 1,000 years, apparently. She went into the Umbrum world and spent 1,000 years unaging and studying the Umbrums. 1,000 years. There has to be some kind of like weird time dilation weirdness happening here, because I don't think she actually spent 1,000 years down there. But that's besides the point. When the Empire returned and Sombra was defeated in the Season 3 premiere, Radiant Hope returned and gave Sombra a new body. Sombra, being obviously pretty angry, got defeated the first time, decided to return and fuck shit up again. And I just love this comic because why are they here? This comic is never explained really well, but for whatever reason, freaking Chrysalis, Iron Will, Lightning Dust, and the Flim Flam brothers show up to fight alongside Sombra. Why are they there? Like, Lightning Dust and Flim Flam are both regular ass ponies. What the hell are they doing here? Anyways, Radiant goes to go meet Cadence, and Cadence actually says she was an orphan, which is really cool world building, like Radiant was and like Sombra was. And Radiant brings Cadence to the Umbrum world, where Cadence reveals that they're actually all evil. Once again, I think there's some kind of time dilation happening with Radiant Hope, because she would not have spent 1,000 years in the Umbrum world and not realize something was up. Sombra ends up releasing all of the Umbrums. And to make a very long story short, Radiant manages to convince Sombra with some tough love that he isn't actually destined to become a monster. It's just kind of what other people expect of him. He was being forced into being a monster by the Umbrums, and it was a choice he could make, and he could choose to not be evil. So Sombra doesn't end up destroying the Crystal Heart. Instead, he puts it back, and like I said, the Crystal Heart destroys evil. And Sombra was made of dark magic. So, like, Sombra was willing to sacrifice himself and genuinely comes this close to game-ending himself until Radiant Hope, along with all of the other princesses, end up using BS princess magic to turn him into a unicorn. Like a real unicorn. So, Sombra gets reformed, and they decide they should go try to find Amore's crystal shards spread across Equestria to reform her into one being, unaware that Cadence is probably a reformation of Amore anyway. And that, ladies and gentlemen, I believe is all of Sombra's story. Just like with Cadence, he seems like a very surface level and boring character within the world of FIM, but you dig deeper into the comics and you realize, dang dude, they had an entire story for this mofo. It really seems like to me that early seasons of FIM were really like that, where they wanted to just create a villain that was evil to be evil no matter what. And then as the series progressed, they slowly started making more morally gray villains, until like season 8 where they introduced Cozy Glow for some reason. I do plan on making another video about Cozy Glow, by the way. I made an old video about Cozy Glow, but I was just rambling the entire time and didn't really have a script. I was just like genuinely frustrated. So I think I'm going to come back and make another Cozy Glow video that more elaborately explains what's wrong with Cozy Glow and why you should not be happy that a foal was locked in hell. And one last thing, I am rapidly approaching 20,000 subscribers. I was trying to get something done in time for it, but it's not gonna be done in time for it. I'll give you a little hint. Although MLP is my main channel's focus, I admit that I can't do this forever. I am working on something that I want to work on that is not MLP focused, but this channel will never go anywhere until I run out of ideas. I think I still got like another 5 years left on this channel still, okay guys? But I am saying that I am setting up the next step, okay? And I'm putting a lot of effort into it to make it really good, but I can't really say much. So don't forget to subscribe. I want to hit 20,000 before the end of the year, which is very probable. And I will see you guys later. And remember kids, always intolerate intolerance.